route to unused military airfields in post-war Europe. But there's only one place in the world where a major metropolitan airport shuts down completely to host a motorsport event. That place is Cleveland, Ohio, home of Burke Lakefront Airport. Welcome live to a beautiful summer afternoon. Independence Day here in Cleveland, Ohio. But down in the pit lane, the temperature is rising rapidly. With more on that, here's Derek Daly.
Yes, it is, Bob. One of the stories is bad tempers, even worse than 2 weeks ago in Portland. Now, in Portland, you might have thought some of the remarks were a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's gone way past that here in Cleveland this weekend. It's beginning to boil over. Now, even yesterday, the normally placid Jimmy Vasser tells Patrick Carpentier the bit of bodywork he should use. And then, of course, Jourdain is livid with Paul Tracy, feeds him a wheel. He's not impressed.
I was out of your way. No, right here. Straight away. I moved totally off the line. I don't know what you're even here. Moved right out of the way. Right here. I was passing at the end of the straightaway down there. You know?
Now remember, there's a lot at stake here, potentially a championship. But when these tempers begin to boil over, you got to keep it in check to make sure you don't make emotional mistakes out on the racetrack. What's fascinating, the feuding former friends are pitted right next to each other at the number 1-2 pit this weekend. Calvin?
Derek, when you put some of the world's fastest and bravest race car drivers out on these wide, expansive runways, they're going to push the limit. And certainly we saw that yesterday. Many drivers dropping wheels in many different corners. Turn 4, though, was their favorite spot. We saw a number of their cars go off in that particular area, really trying to keep the car together. Mario Haberfeld had a moment. Paul Tracy, even though he ended up with a pole, he too lost it there. And also Adrian Fernandez. Now, Sebastian Bourdais, he's never been to this racetrack before, so he was pushing all session, every session, and certainly found the limit on more than one occasion. But the big problem is when these drivers are actually dropping wheels, they're making the track extremely dirty. And a number of the drivers on their second runs last night said we couldn't get a clean lap. By that, not traffic, but a clean racetrack. Now, we talked about tempers flaring. If anyone encounters that tonight, they're sure to get heat under the collar once again.
For the 22nd year, Burke Lakefront Airport plays host to the Champ Cars. The Bridgestone presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford. But before you can race, the U.S. Bank presents the Cleveland Grand Prix. You must qualify. And on this historic weekend, we will qualify and race for the first time ever under artificial light. Hello and welcome everyone, and a very happy Independence Day to you as we welcome you live here on Speed Channel. My name is Bob Varsha, standing next to the embodiment of the holiday spirit, Tommy Kendall. Nice hat, TK.
Well, it is Independence Day, and what a country. When you can race cars like this on the lakeshore on a nice Friday evening, it doesn't get much better.
Nobody is more independent than TK. Now, as Derek Daly just mentioned, tensions are rising down there in the pit lane. Getting into the middle part of the season, lots of racing, lots of testing, tempers getting short, and the focus of it all seems to be Paul Tracy and Michel Jourdain.
Well, one of the great things about this country is freedom of speech, and the drivers have certainly been exercising that. Behind some of those cat-in-the-hat rhymes that Paul Tracy had at Portland was some real emotion and some real sentiment. The other side of those was Michel Jourdain. They came together in the race, and I'm interested in looking at how Jourdain deals with this. Does Paul get inside his head? I spoke with Michel a little bit, and it doesn't seem the case. He thinks the other. So you've got a little bit of a battle of territory. Paul Tracy, the established guy, not wanting to give up his spotlight. Jourdain thinking he has a right to a piece of it.
Well, Paul Tracy proved 2 weeks ago in Portland, Oregon, that he can not only flap the lip, he can also back it up. Here's proof.
Well, I got one thing to say to all these would-be race car drivers. You shouldn't throw stones if you live in a glass house. And if you got a glass jaw, then you should watch your mouth.
What do you expect tomorrow in the race?
I'm going to show Jourdain who's the boss at applesauce.
Race was underway on lap 44. Paul Tracy lunged out into the pit lane illegally, as it turned out, to keep Jourdain behind him. A lap later, the Mexican driver tried to force the issue, and it all came to tears. Tracy continued and eventually took the race lead. Jourdain lost the fire and went a lap down. On lap 85, Adrian Fernandez caught Tracy unawares, went down the inside, took the race lead, and went on to his first victory ever as an owner driver, the first since Bobby Rahal back in 1992 at Nazareth Speedway. Following the first round of qualifying, Paul Tracy gained one championship point that brought his season total to an even 100. Note Bruno Junqueira in second, just 5 points out, but the only driver in the top 5 who has yet to win a race. And down in 7th place, the French rookie Sébastien Bourdais, the only man other than Tracy to win more than once, but he has had a terrible time getting a result when he does not win. In Portland, he said, "We just can't get a result here in America." Let's get back down to the pit lane and Derek Daly with the man.
The man who looks very relaxed, Paul. It's fair to say your lifestyle and your driving style might mirror each other flat out. No holds barred. But Paul, it's got you in trouble too at times. Is there anybody you think around in this team that might try and rein you in and change your natural style and make you maybe more consistent for a championship run?
No, I mean, they're just telling me to do what I do best. And, you know, my friend of mine, Patrizia, told me, play it cool. It's the old school rule, man.
As the battle heats up here, it looks like yourself and Jourdain could go toe-to-toe, head-to-head many, many times. You had a friendship off the track. It looks like it's getting strained here.
Well, we sorted it out today. We saw each other at the autograph session, had a little word. So, you know, it's just racing. You know, everybody's out there fighting really hard. Everybody's fighting for their position on the track, and I'm not the only person that's not giving any quarter. Everybody's doing the same thing, but it seems like always everybody just wants to point the finger at me because it's easy to do that. But I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to try to put this car on pole tonight.
Thank you, Paul. Paul said it's now sorted out with Jourdain. I know last weekend he did not believe it was anywhere near being sorted out. And with more from the other man himself, he's with Calvin Fish. Calvin?
Here with Michelle. And Michelle, Paul was certainly talking some smack a couple of weeks ago at Portland, and then in the race you two got together. What's your view on the incident now you've looked at the tapes a bit more?
Well, I think mainly it was a racing accident. I think anyone else would have admitted that I had gone by, but I made a mistake because I trusted Paul, and I think, you know, a lot of times he takes chances that he shouldn't, but mainly I think it was just a racing accident and we just get on to the next one.
The championship is definitely heating up right now. Bruno's in the mix as well, of course, but do you think that PT is possibly threatened by you? I mean, you've made such a move to establish yourself this season.
Well, I think everything is just a coincidence that we've been running close the last couple of races, and yesterday in qualifying the same, but I think he's smarter than that, and it's many races to go.
The team is certainly right behind you, Michelle, and last night's qualifying performance, you felt you should have been further up the grid. You felt that Paul may have blocked you again last night, and there were some words after that.
Yes, well, everybody other than the guy that is in pole position thinks that should be farther up in the grid, you know, but yeah, I think he blocked, and we had a little discussion there, but everything is okay. We're good friends.
All right, Michelle, have a good run tonight.
Thank you.
That underscores the fact that it's very hard to be close friends. You can be friends with the guys you race against. It's hard to be close friends. And there is, underneath the maple leaf, finally a chrome bumper on the player's Lola.
Well, as the old saying goes, it ain't bragging if you could back it up. 2 weeks ago, Paul Tracy talked some smack and took pole position, nearly won the race. He's on provisional pole today. How about former winner Roberto Moreno, the senior driver in the series? He can still get that front wheel in the air when he needs to. The race is Saturday night under the lights here in Cleveland. Check it out Sunday afternoon beginning at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports. We'll be back.
And the wheel
Speed Channel coverage of qualifying for the Champ Car Grand Prix of Cleveland is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, advanced technology that gives you a grip on the future. And by Ford. If you haven't looked at Ford lately, look again. Beautiful aerial view of downtown Cleveland and Burke Lakefront Airport, site of this final round of qualifying for this weekend's Champ Car race. And here's a program note. We had a little error a moment ago. CBS coverage of the Saturday night Champ Car Grand Prix of Cleveland comes your way Sunday afternoon at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But as always, check your local stations for the CBS affiliate near you. And we can't go much farther without talking to the defending champion of this race. He's with Calvin Fish.
Well, not only is he the defending champion, they call him Mr. Ohio. He also won down the road at Mid-Ohio. How much confidence does it give you to come back to this racetrack, having won here last year, Patrick?
Pretty good. Won pretty well yesterday. We had a good qualifying. PT beat me there by a little bit. He had a great lap, and hopefully today we can get it back. So we'll see how it goes, but it's been fun. I love Ohio, and it's been great last year, and hopefully it'll be as good this year.
You're a lucky man even to be here, though. Talk about your training regime and what happened about a week ago to you.
Yeah, my training regime is I'm a crash test dummy. And I train cycling and with Miguel Duhamel, and we had a crash. I hit a car at like 35 miles an hour, a trailer, and the guy was parked there, and it was a pretty big hit. So since then, I must say that I've been a little bit tired, but hopefully I've been okay, so this is good.
Well, the team says the safest place for him is actually behind the race wheel in the race car. So he trips over suitcases, falls downstairs, he does everything. Let's go up to Double D with Jimmy Vasser.
Our 96 champion, Jimmy Vasser. Jimmy, as much open space as there is here, there's an awful lot of finger pointing and fist waving going on.
Yeah, there is. I mean, everybody goes out in one bunch at the end trying to time it right with the tires and the track. And if you go out nose to tail, the guys in front gets a good run, but then it's like a big accordion effect, and I can't believe somehow we can't get that worked out. But everybody's out for himself out there, and it gets real frustrating.
So Jimmy, tell me the truth. Last night was real dark by the time the end of the practice session was over. How easy is it to see out there compared to daytime?
Man, I feel like Mr. Magoo in the daylight. So I had LASIKs done, and I think at night for me, maybe it's definitely not as good. And but I think they worked on the lights, and it's supposed to be better tonight. But it's not going to get that dark in qualifying, so we're going to have to wait for the race and see how much better it is.
Thanks, Jimmy.
All right.
I didn't know Jimmy had his eyes done. I always expected to see those safety glasses on his head inside the helmet.
That's usually something guys don't talk about. Obviously, maybe there's a little bit of refraction going on from that LASIK.
Well, he's not kidding. There's a lot of frustration down there in the pit lane. There you see Bruno Junqueira climbing into his Newman Haas Pacific Care car. Adrian Fernandez, man of the hour, off his win 2 weeks ago in Portland. He was the first to say, I've been under a lot of pressure from my sponsors, and that win did an awful lot. May also help the ticket sales for the Mexico City round later this year. We'll be back in a moment, live to Cleveland. Coming up tonight here on Speed Channel, Wind Tunnel with Dave Despain. Jack Roush, his scheduled guest. So call in with your thoughts and opinions and questions for Dave and his guest. It's tonight, Wind Tunnel with Dave Despain, 11 p.m. live, only on Speed Channel. Clouds are beginning to obscure the late afternoon sun. The Musco lighting is now on. You're looking at the biggest artificial lighting project in history. Previously, it took 8 to light a golf course for the made-for-TV Battle at Bighorn involving Tiger Woods. We have 23 separate Musco towers lighting up this 2.1-mile racetrack. Just before the break, we talked about that man, Adrian Fernandez, winning 2 weeks ago in Portland. Let's review why that was such an amazing comeback for Fernandez. Adrian Fernandez made history at the most recent round of the Champ Car World Series, becoming the first car owner to win a race since Bobby Rahal in 1992, while at the same time breaking a win drought that had lasted nearly 2.5 years. It was remarkable in light of 2 massive accidents late last season, incidents which nearly ended Adrian's career. The first came last July in Vancouver, Canada, when Patrick Carpentier spun, creating a massive chain reaction behind him, in which Fernandez's car was speared amidships by that of Bruno Junqueira. Fernandez was taken from the car with a cracked pelvis, among other injuries. Yet amazingly, he missed just 1 race before returning to action at Road America. 2 races later, he qualified second and finished 4th in Denver. Then in October at Surfers Paradise, Australia, Fernandez was involved in another serious incident when the majority of the field piled up as the green flag waved on a soaking wet track. Tora Takagi's car was punted into Adrian's cockpit, again causing injuries that would take him out of action for the rest of the year and made him think seriously about retiring.
So, I mean, that's exactly what happened to me. It was just at the time that I was having a lot of pain. I never experienced so much pain in my life the way I was having. I'd never been injured that way. And I had a lot of fear about if I was going to get back, properly. And so you get all these things, but, then when you get healthy and then you realize that, you don't want to, I don't want to live racing like that. I want to live racing on top.
Adrian Fernandez is back on top now. He's creeping up on it this weekend, so the car was set up a little too tight for the bumps here at Cleveland, and there are a few of those, Tommy Kendall.
Yeah, and a win is a win for Adrian, and it's significant for his team because he started it. But the way he won that race, I think, means at least as much to Adrian. There was a lot of tension with he and Paul Tracy, another guy who was upset with Paul, and he took it from Paul. Paul made a mistake. He stuffed it down the inside and said, hey, face to face, it didn't fall in his lap. And so I think the way he won that race was just as important. And even though he's an experienced guy, he's a veteran in a lot of races, that boost in confidence will help him and his team.
Let's take a look at yesterday's first round of qualifying, which took place under the bright summer sun. Paul Tracy took provisional pole, a guaranteed spot on the front row for Saturday night's race, and a championship bonus point at 58.405 seconds. Fastest lap turned by anyone this weekend. His teammate, Patrick Carpentier, right there in second, and then Sebastian Bourdais from the Newman Haas team. Now note these times, because in a moment we're going to show you what the practice times were like last night under the lights. Now here's a look at the night practice, and notice if you weren't under a minute in lap time, you were nowhere. Sebastian Bourdais leading the way. Now let's take a look at some of the highlights of that night practice. It began with the sun low in the sky over Lake Erie. But the work was just beginning for the Champ Car stars. Paul Tracy whipping his car around. There is Fernandez, who swapped ends on at least one occasion. The two players' teammates had their share of it. Max Pappas. As the sun went down, the sparks began to fly. Walter Salas from Dale Coyne Racing. And Bruno Junqueira, second in the championship. Mario Haberfeld got the nose into the tire wall. There's a great view of Oriol Servia in the Vistion car under these amazing light towers, the equivalent of 500,000 automobile headlights in illumination. Here's a look at the temperatures in round one qualifying in the daytime, 85 degrees, and it felt hotter than that with the humidity. Last night's practice, 76 degrees. The current temperature, 80. It will go down as the sun sets, and that's definitely having an effect on the race cars, TK.
And there's an additional variable. The Trans Am race was just concluded, and this is the first time I can remember that the Champ Cars have qualified after a Trans Am race. And so the common conventional wisdom is that it takes a while for that rubber that's not compatible with this type of rubber to be scraped off. But I think a lot of guys would have liked to have gone early based on what they saw last night with the traffic and the dirt that swept on the track, but that's mitigated by the potential, and they'll know from this session whether that rubber's really changed the balance of the car.
If you're familiar with Champ Car road course qualifying rules, you know that we are now in a 10-minute practice period. Drivers can run as many laps as they want, and will come in for 10 minutes of work on the cars before they head out for a maximum of 15 timed laps per driver. Let's go to Calvin Fish.
Well, when they run those 15 laps, Bob, they have 40 minutes to cut those laps in. And last night we saw the guys, as we have seen all season long, wait until the death. It was about 20 minutes before most of the front runners went out. And then, of course, they complain about one another and traffic and so on and so forth. But with weather imminent, we had a big storm come through here earlier this afternoon and another one on its way. They're really going to keep a close eye on the skies here this afternoon to see if the weather does move in a little bit early. We may see some guys go early once we get to the qualifying spot. Derek?
As Michel Jourdain leaves his pit, he was content to sit here, let everybody else go out and clean the dirt off the racetrack, did not want to get embroiled in what Vassar said earlier on was part of the problem. Everybody trying to use the same piece of racetrack at the same time.
There's a good look at turn one, the sign of so many incidents over the years here at Burke Lakefront Airport. Michel Jourdain, currently 18th, but these times really mean nothing because this is just practice. After 10 minutes of this and a 10-minute break, we'll do it for real. Stay with us. Well, it's certainly been an interesting weekend at the Formula One French Grand Prix. Jos the Boss Verstappen putting the Minardi on provisional pole. Don't tell me about wet racetracks. Be sure to check out the French Grand Prix coming your way here on Speed Channel Sunday beginning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time with paddock reports from Peter Windsor and the race to follow. Formula One is home on Speed. Beautiful look at Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, Ohio. Offering more lakefront area than any city in the world. And there is Bruno Junqueira in the Lily car from Newman Haas Racing. Currently the fast man in this setup. Excuse me, that is Sebastian Bourdais. He had black on that car previously, but now he's got golden arches and a red paint scheme.
I wonder if this is a lead-in to the new Froggy sandwich.
We're calling it Mick Champ car, but other folks have been calling it the #2 combo. It's actually a part of a 3-race deal, sponsorship from McDonald's to celebrate their new salad line. And since Sebastian Bourdais is French, I assume his is salad niçoise.
The new salad line, which has Newman's own dressing.
That's right, Paul Newman's dressings, and I'm sure a big charitable contribution to his hole-in-the-wall gang camps, and that is a very good cause indeed. Here is Bruno Junqueira with the maroon and white car, the Pacific Care car from Newman Haas. He and Paul Tracy having a little nose-to-tail fun there.
And that's an example of the kind of things that this is just warm-up. But you saw Bruno was doing whatever he was, getting up to speed, and held Paul up. And so Paul went by, shook his fist. Usually it's the other way around. It seems that everyone's been a little bit heated at Paul. But to give you a little insight into the mindset of the drivers, when you're out there, you think everybody is against you, and you're totally absorbed in your own little world. And when you're out there, you're thinking, I need to get a clear lap. And so even if you have to stop on the track to create that for yourself, there's hardly any thought given to how it affects everybody else. But the fact of the matter is there are rules in the rule book now in qualifying. If you impede somebody else, the chief steward has the ability to dock you your quick time. So at some point, either the guys are going to work it out amongst themselves, or maybe the officials have to get involved.
This is down in the turn 7 and 8 area, where the cars drive right at that concrete wall. And that's a part of the track that the drivers were concerned with after last night's practice. They thought there wasn't sufficient illumination in that corner. Here's another look at Tracy going by Junqueira and giving him a salute. Boys.
Another thing that I see happen often and be interesting, sometimes there's the accordion effect of guys trying to create a gap on the track. But what I've seen Paul do a couple times this year is when his run was completed, it seems like he relaxes mentally, and he's on his in-lap, similar to how Tagliani got in his way at Portland, and he just isn't aware. Afterwards, Paul honestly thinks he doesn't see what the flap is about, but Jourdain and all these guys are not making it up. So somewhere in between those two lies the truth. But it is one of the biggest challenges at every track. The closing speed also of these cars is so great, you might look in your mirror and say you've got a bunch of distance, but if you're off the throttle for just a couple seconds, the closing speed is so great, next thing you know, there can be a car inside you.
Once again, this is practice before we do it for real. And keep in mind that last night in yesterday afternoon in first qualifying, the top 3 qualifiers all spun during the session. Calvin Fish.
Well, it's interesting that we've come to one of the widest racetracks we run on, of course, and we're still getting these same blocking moves being done. And when you read the press notes last night after the qualifying session and the final practice session, all of these guys had a beef with someone. It wasn't just Paul Tracy, it was several of the drivers complaining about someone up and down pit lane. And I think you're absolutely right, TK. The drivers need to take it into their own hands to when they've completed their qualifying run to hustle back to pit lane and get offline, because I think sooner or later we're going to have something happen out there that's going to be pretty severe in terms of a crash or something. Then we're really going to be talking about it.
Well, there's an example of what can happen. Tiago Montero in the orange and blue car from Fittipaldi Dingman Motorsports spun, as you see here in replay. Got it straightened out on his way and immediately was overtaken by Walter Salas in one of the Dale Coyne cars. There's Montero in the pits. 2 gearbox problems in Portland 2 weeks ago made it a miserable weekend for that team. Paul Tracy is out of the car. They'll work on it before we begin qualifying. We'll take a break and return live to Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland. Stay with us. Back in 1983, the Champ Cars raced more than 300 miles at Cleveland, nearly 70 miles more than today. Heat affected many, such as Gordon Johncock from Patrick Racing, and female driver Desiree Wilson, who made her Champ Car debut and finished 10th. The conditions affected not only the drivers, but crew members as well, although no one got hotter than Bill Alsop, whose car caught fire. He was okay. Tony Bettenhausen needed relief help from Kevin Cogan due to the sweltering heat and humidity. And check out Pete Halsmer, trying to suck down as much water as he could stomach, and then for extra measure getting a bucketful dumped on him by the crew. It must have worked. The Arciero Racing driver wound up finishing second to Al Unser Sr., who was himself overcome by the heat and nearly collapsed in victory lane. Big Al would parlay his Cleveland win into the 1983 National Championship. Just a part of the history of Burke Lakefront Airport for 22 years. Round the Bridgestone presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford. Practice is now complete. Crews are working on the cars before we go out for final qualifying. Here are the Fast 10. Patrick Carpentier, the defending champion here in Cleveland. It could be a good bet this weekend. And look at Mario Haberfeld, the rookie up there, followed by Michel Jourdain, Paul Tracy, and a former Cleveland winner, as well as pole sitter Roberto Moreno. There's 11th through 19th. Alex Tagliani will be moving up. We still have 3 drivers, Max Pappas, Jeff Boss, and Walter Salas, who did not break 60 seconds for their lap. Now we'd like to show you the highlights of round 6 of the Trans Am Series for the BF Goodrich Tires Cup that took place earlier today here in Cleveland. Don't forget, the race will air here on Speed Channel this Sunday, so if you don't want to see what happened, then join us again in about 90 seconds. Our own Scott Pruitt took his 5th pole position in 6 races this year and chose to start drivers right with his title rival Johnny Miller alongside. Miller tucked in behind with Bobby Sack in the midst of a rookie battle, coming up the inside looking for 3rd. Did they all get through turn 1? Come on, this is Cleveland. You know better than that. But from there, our man Scott simply checked out and grabbed his 4th win of the year with his team boss and Champ Car team owner Paul Gentilozzi right behind to pick up his 3rd win here in Cleveland. Don't forget, it'll be coming your way Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time here on Speed Channel, and we're happy to welcome the newest winner in the Trans Am Series to the booth. Well done, Scotty.
Thanks, guys. Sorry I had to miss out on the first part of the program, but I had to enjoy the accolades of the success. But things are good. The track, this is a difficult track. To get the car right here is extremely difficult. The setup is always tough, and it's ever changing. That's what makes it even more difficult.
Now, you've raced here more often in a Champ Car than you have in a Trans Am car. What's it going to mean to these guys?
Well, as the track is rubbering up, as conditions are changing, especially this evening, you know, it's from when we finished in the Trans Am race, it's cooling off significantly as we speak. Not only the ambient, but also the track. The hot sun is not baking the track as we speak. So those things are going to cause some of the drivers, and more so the engineers, you know, they're going to really need to be on their toes to figure out what are they going to have to do to keep up with the track. Not to be behind it, but to keep up with it.
The shadow of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the background. Crews working on the cars. Derek Daly is standing by with Paul Tracy.
A man who had a very confident look on his face, Paul, when you finished that session. It was very good, but I take it you were on old tires. What does that mean, by the way?
Just saying hello to somebody.
Okay. But you feel pretty good.
No, I feel real good. Car's real good, and we ran on old tires, so it might be hard to beat yesterday's time because it was a good lap, but it's cooler, so we'll wait and see what happens.
And as your friend said earlier,
I told you what my friend Patricia said. Play it cool. It's the old school rule, my brother.
you got it, man.
Yeah, if I know my Hollywood symbolism, he was saying hi to Carol Burnett. 11 starts for Paul Tracy here at Cleveland, and he won from pole 10 years ago. Is that possible in 1993? Here's Calvin Fish.
Well, the man who currently sits second in points had a bad day yesterday. Bob Bruno Junqueira broke the gearbox on the Pacific Air car very early in the session. Was sitting in 11th place after qualifying, having been fastest in practice. Now, when you come into one of these sessions tonight and there's weather possibly going to hit before the end of this qualifying session, you would think these would be one of the teams that would go early. But I just spoke to John Tzanickas, who oversees the operation here, and he says, well, the racetrack just isn't quick enough. He said the Trans Am rubber has slowed the track down, and also the jet dryers just went out, which puts a slight film on the racetrack, and a lot of these guys are reluctant to run. So, as ever, we're probably going to see these guys roll the dice once again.
All right, thanks very much, Calvin. Final touches being put on the car. There is Bourdais' car. Looks like the work there is a bit more comprehensive than we've seen elsewhere up and down the pit lane. Now here's a program note. The FIA Formula 3000 Championship is heating up. If you caught the last race, you know what I'm talking about. The one at the Nürburgring. Be sure to check the Formula 3000 race from France, coming your way here on Speed Channel tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, live. We'll be back in a moment to Cleveland. As part of the festivities leading up to this weekend's race in Cleveland, Ford Champ Car Night took place downtown. All the different forms of Ford motorsport, over 100 years young, were on display. Big autograph session with the Champ Car drivers. Lots of new makes and models, a little bit of musical entertainment, and a whole lot more. Nobody celebrates Champ Car Weekend like the folks here in Cleveland. I've got to tell you, the best motorsports ticket anywhere is right here in Cleveland this weekend, and this crowd is taking advantage of it. For $5, you can get in. You see the Trans Am race, Champ Car qualifying, a massive driver autograph session, and a huge fireworks display scheduled for later on this evening. You can't beat it. $5. He's delirious. Here's Derek Daly.
Down in Michel Jourdain's pit, but just to the right side of Michel is his engineer Todd Boland. Todd, the question is, can today's track or tonight's track be as fast as the times put down last night?
Actually, last night wasn't all that fast because few people ran tired. Tonight will be fine once we rubber in and get the Trans Am rubber off the racetrack. It's very cool compared to how we qualified yesterday, so it should be good by the end of the session, but I think at the very beginning it's going to be pretty slow.
So when you say rubber in, what do you mean? How is it other rubber left out there? Is that what you're going to try and get rid of before you go fast?
Yeah, basically the Trans Am guys just finished an hour-and-a-half race, so all the rubber they ain't put down, we have to get rid of and put the Bridgestone rubber down.
Thank you. Thank you. It's fascinating that the layer of rubber, Todd believes, can go, but it would only be towards the end of the qualifying session. So at the start, they believe it will be slower. Calvin?
Well, one of the teams that's gone early is Adrian Fernandez, and Dave Watson, his engineer. Why the decision? Is it the weather are you concerned about, or just you want to get a lap in?
I've wanted to do it for the last two races, and we're not quite sure what this sky looks like.
You had a chance to enjoy the victory. It had to be sweet, the one in Portland.
Oh, yes. Hasn't stopped.
They've been partying, but they've been testing hard as well. A lot of these teams tested at Elkhart Lake Thursday, just over a week ago, and 2 days at Mid-Ohio on Monday and Tuesday, Bob.
All right, thanks very much, Calvin. Let's check the rules for Champ Car road course qualifying as Adrian Fernandez makes his way through turn one out onto the runways at Burke Lakefront Airport. We've had the 10-minute open practice, the 10-minute break, and now we have 40 minutes of qualifying, 20 minutes of it guaranteed green flag. If they have to run over to get in that 25 minutes of green flag running, they will. But each driver is limited to 15 green flag laps, and if you cause a red flag, you lose your fast lap of the session, and that can affect your place on the starting grid by quite a bit. Cars are on track. You're riding with Oriol Servia, the Vistillon car from Patrick Racing.
I talked to Adrian last night. He said that they needed to do some work. We couldn't see the apexes real well. The lighting wasn't exactly what we wanted. And these guys, the Musco guys in CART, stayed here till 4:30 this morning trying to get it right. They painted some of the apexes. They moved the lights around. They added some other lights to try and brighten areas that were fairly dark, so these guys are working hard to make it right for these drivers.
Now, speaking of working hard, the work hasn't finished down in the Johnson Controls pit. Derek Daly.
Bit of a panic on out here because, as you can see, the brake disc is off Alex Tagliani's car. They just found a crack in a brand new brake disc that went on this morning. Luckily enough, found it. So the 8-pot caliper Brembos are being taken off, trying to get Tag out with enough track time. This team led by Tom Howard.
See the caliper going back on. The Formula One cars, they place those at the bottom of the wheel to get that mass as low as possible on the chassis. While they continue their work, other cars are on track. The early leader is Patrick Carpentier. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Welcome back to Burke Lakefront Airport. Great Grand Am Cup sports car action coming your way on Speed Channel. Tomorrow at 1 p.m., the Fontana race. At 4:30 p.m., the Grand Sport Division from Watkins Glen International, followed at 5:30 by the Sport Touring class, Grand Am Cup, only here on Speed Channel. Welcome back. You're on board with Patrick Carpentier making his way around and carrying our visor cam. A moment ago, that visor cam gave us a great view of a very awkward moment for the defending champion here at the Champ Car Grand Prix of Cleveland. Let's watch what happened from the outside first.
Looks like they've been fighting just a bit of a loose car, and they just caught him out. That was over in the back, and you can see it was already loose on the turn-in, and it just kind of a slow spin.
And if you have a car that's loose on the long entries, because it's so wide when you turn off of the runway, a loose car, you don't do all your braking in a straight line.
Now let's watch and listen from visor cam.
Look at that. Looks like he got his wrist.
Shaking out his wrist.
Continued on his way. And he is the second quickest man in the session right now. The number to shoot for, Paul Tracy's provisional pole at 58.405 seconds. Fast man thus far, this man, Oriol Servia, in the Visteon car at 59.477 seconds.
It's the flyer. That's a little quicker, 59.3. And that was Jim McGee talking to him. Come on, guy, get one more, Oriol. We need one more flyer.
He's been bumped. Roberto Moreno just went 59.390. Let's watch Servia's splits. Good lap.
Very rough off to the back here. The track actually falls away. You run it all the way up to the line. This is an area where you got to carry a lot of speed, a lot of momentum. Coming onto the back straight right here, right up to the wall.
Gaining momentum. Green is good. The negative means he is ahead of Paul Tracy's provisional pole lap speed. Final corners. Someone's been off.
Pit, next time by. Pit, next time by.
58.646, 2/10 of a second off of what he needed.
I think that answers the question. These conditions, we're going to see some faster speeds than yesterday, no question about it. Jim McGee.
Checking those amazing pit monitors they have, covering all the action.
Scott Pruitt, your old team, Patrick Racing here. What they did to try and get grip for most of the first session was lower the car, trying to get more downforce. They realized that going over the bumps became such a problem, Scott, that they began to raise the car, which was against their initial thinking. Raising it made Servia faster, and he was third fastest last night when they ran in the dark, and that raised ride height appears to be good during this qualifying session.
We talk about that challenge. It's a very difficult track.
Negative, pit this lap for fuel, pit this lap. And tell Max thank you. Tell Max thank you very much.
A little bit of controversy going on there. You saw Max I don't know if Patrick was on a flyer or not, but they decided to come in. This track is really difficult. You want to run it low because it's so fast. The average speed is so fast around here, but at the same time, it's so rough. You can't keep the car on the ground because you're going to lose speed, and it's very difficult to control the car. When you hit these bumps, the car hits the ground. Actually, it literally jumps away from you. That's the fine line, and that's what McGee was talking about with Serbia. They said, well, theoretically, the car needs to be on the ground. Realistically, we've got to raise that sucker up.
On board with Ryan Hunter-Reay, the rookie from Florida.
Off in the grass. You talked about how the road falls away. At the center line of each of these runways is the high spot. So on the exit of this corner, it's off camber going away. And where the guys seem to have the most trouble with it is the left-hander coming up after this next right-hander. The car seems to be in a bit of a push, and if they're running out of road right here, they tend to push off the outside there and coming onto the front straightaway.
They actually crest and go back down. Same thing here. You crest a hill, go back down. Now this is pretty difficult. You need to carry a lot of speed here, but you can actually see that crown all through here. You gotta work it just right, and look how rough it is, especially down this back straight. Watch this. Car's just gonna go up and down. Oh.
The yellow arrows by the names at the upper left of your screen of the cars that are in the pits. Ryan Hunter-Reay won from pole last year in the Toyota Atlantic Championship, the elite level of karts driver development ladder.
And the reason the camera makes a difference is we're talking about it in an exaggerated sense, but it is subtle. When you turn, when you're off camera, the front, you're going slightly uphill until you get to the center of the road, and then it's going slightly downhill on the other side. And where the problem comes is when the front end gets to that change before the back end. The balance changes quickly, it pushes then loose several times during the course of one corner.
This is the Reynard chassis, of course. Oh, huge.
Working it hard there.
Jump there. Let's get more on the Reynards with Calvin.
Down here with Derek Walker. Derek, the Reynard won here last year, and we talk about the Reynard struggling over the bumps. Why does it seem to go well here at Cleveland?
Well, actually, it's just a good handling car if you can get the sweet spot, and this racetrack occasionally you can get it. We're better over the bumps than we were. It's just since the Trans Am cars have been running, different rubber on the racetrack, and it's a lot slicker, so it's changed our balance right now. But otherwise, we're really in the hunt. We've just got to get the balance right.
Okay, well, Darren actually said that the car's a little bit loose there on the first run. They're going to make an adjustment, try and get it a bit sweeter for this next one. Bob?
Thank you, Calvin. Picking up one of the Ernest competition car. This is Mario Dominguez, who had a great practice earlier today, was very quick. Currently P4 at 58.990 seconds. Still a half second off of what he will need to get Paul Tracy for pole. We'll be back to Cleveland in a moment. Next week, Toronto kicks off 3 races north of the border for the Champ Cars this year, featuring big crowds and big action. Last year, that tradition continued. Remember Townsend Bell and Bruno Junqueira? In 1993, Paul Tracy won on his hometown circuit. In '96, Adrian Fernandez took the checkers. In 2002, Alex Zanardi waved them for Newman Haas driver Cristiano Ramada. Who will win in Toronto this year? We'll find out next week. The Molson Champ Car Grand Prix of Toronto is coming your way next weekend. Qualifying on Saturday the 12th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Speed. The race Sunday, July 13th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports. We've got a red flag here at Burke Lakefront Airport for Paul Tracy. There you see him, appears to be on the racing surface. Apparently has lost the power. Ron Bromley and the Simple Green safety team respond. Simple push is all he needs. Here's another look.
Don't lift, Paul. Just keep it going, baby.
Paul's decided he likes to spin to the inside, not the outside, so he just keeps his foot buried, apparently.
Now, Paul Tracy was 17th in the session. He leapt up to 3rd with a 58.712. He will lose that time now, or a better time if he gets one in the remainder of the session.
And that might change how they approach this session. It looks like the track's going to be quicker, but does he want to use an extra set of tires? Now he needs 2 laps better than anybody else's lap to improve and get the pole. He's already guaranteed second. Does he want to maybe conserve those tires? Is the deck too stacked against going quicker today?
Now there are extra sets of Bridgestone Radial Racing tires for the teams this weekend because they're doing a lot of practice to get used to the lights. So he does have some extra sets at his disposal.
Well,
Calvin Fish.
Well, the man who was sensational over in Europe was Mario Dominguez with 2 podium finishes there. But since they returned, the team has really been struggling a little bit. With some testing last week, as I mentioned, a lot of these teams have been busy. The dog days of summer, they're calling it. But it's really paid off. They've come here with a very strong package. I just spoke to Brian Maher, and he said, yes, we had a lot of questions which were answered during those tests. We feel a lot more confident for the rest of the season. Derek?
Michel Jourdain right now is in 7th place. Team owner Bobby Rahal. Bobby, you won here in '82. Not a lot's changed with the track since then. Are you concerned that the track might have not enough grip for you to potentially knock Tracy off the pole?
No, I mean, if somebody's gone just as quick right now, or almost. I mean, I think it'll go quicker. It's cooler, but, you know, more rubber. The Atlantic cars were a bit quicker today, so this place always gets better the longer you run on it. And, you know, in years past, it was the temperature that had the big effect, but that's not the case now.
Have a look at this young man over here, over Bobby's shoulder. That is Graham Rahal, son of Bobby and Debbie Rahal. Graham is only 14 years old, and last week he won the ICC class of the Stars of Tomorrow, the karting championship backed by Kart at Elkhart Lake. A man of the future.
Shifter kart star Graham Rahal. His cousin Kyle's doing pretty well as well, son of Bobby's brother Ian. Paul Tracy will lose his best time, but he had the quickest time in provisional. Welcome back to Burke Lakefront Airport, glittering under the lights of 23 Musco lighting towers. The Toyota Atlantic Championship, the elite level of the Kart Driver Development Series, is also racing here at Burke Lakefront Airport this weekend. Check it out Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Speed Channel. Now, moments ago, Patrick Carpentier had a little chat with his pit crew about how things are going for him in this session. There he is sitting there looking at the timing and scoring screen propped up on his dash. Let's take you back and listen to the conversation he had with his crew over the radio.
Track getting better? Yeah, it seems to be, but I'm really struggling in 5-6. I'm really slow through there. That's why I lose a lot of my time. I just can't get to the left and right. I'm sliding going in on the left-hander, and then when I hit the bumps on the right-hander, then the front just skids across, and I gotta hit the throttle pretty hard to make the car turn. But I'm a lot slower than what I was.
Pretty forthright with his crew, and I suppose you have to be.
You need to be in that set of circumstances. We talked about it, we touched on it earlier. It may be the car's just too close to the ground. When you go up over that rise right there, that car slams into the ground. The front of the car is just going to sail.
And what that does is it puts him too far to the right. It makes the upcoming right-hander a little bit tighter. And so you rob Peter to pay Paul. You carry more speed through the left-hander, but he's too far to the right. The right becomes sharper.
There goes Mad Max. Calvin Fish has more.
Well, before Mad Max goes out for his second run, the team are actually increasing the tire pressures. And talking to some of the engineers about these cooler conditions at night, they said tire pressure is critical. If you run a little bit higher, it stabilizes the tire early in the run, but there's a tendency for it to go overinflated towards the end. So they really have to try and find the sweet spot. But for Max Pappas, what a month it's been. He competed at Le Mans. He then got the ride at Portland. In fact, last weekend he was back behind the wheel of a sports car again at Road Atlanta. 3 days of testing in the Champ Car, and here tonight. So busy weekend for this man. Let's go down to Double D.
Interesting on the setups. Both players' cars and the Patrick car with Servia have come here to Cleveland with an oval track underwing, which generates more downforce, but it also makes the car much more sensitive. Interesting, those three guys are also among the very fastest.
There's Mario Haberfeld, currently 7th fastest in the session, second quickest rookie behind Sebastian Bourdais, with a 59.141 second lap. How close is anyone to challenging Paul Tracy's provisional pole time of 58.405? A 10th. Bruno Junqueira at 58.595.
Haberfeld just did an interesting thing there. It was at the end of what he felt was probably his best lap, and so rather than bringing the car...
This time, Mario, need to pit this time.
Rather than bringing the car back across it's on the racing line, you're covering slightly more distance doing it that way, so he just kept the car on the right, ran through the dirty part of the track in hopes of shaving a couple hundredths off of his time. Little things like that that you always think about when you're out there qualifying.
Mario Dominguez.
He's having a great run tonight. This guy, again, we talked about, had a great run in Europe. Really picked up the pace, this whole team this season. Today showing a lot of speed. Currently the second quickest guy of this, fourth quickest guy of this session. It's changing too fast.
That's right. Tagliani just jumped up there. Oriol Servia reinforced his time. Fastest man of the session, Junqueira. Then Servia, Tagliani, Dominguez, Carpentier, Bourdais, Jourdain, Haberfeld, and Ryan Hunter-Reay with teammate Jimmy Vasser 10th.
Now I know these guys also made that switch to the short oval underwing. Looking for a little more downforce, but has more pitch sensitivity. Got to be a little bit more concerned with controlling the car and ride height changes. But they're looking for that extra little bit of downforce. Anything they can get to get around this track. And it's very important here, Cleveland, because the turns are so fast.
7th after the first round of qualifying. Currently P4, the outside of row 2.
10-4.
Tagliani informing the crew he's coming in. I want to give a shout out to a member of our family here at Speed Channel. Skip Van Vliet, one of our tape operators, is out at Sutter Memorial Hospital in Sacramento, California. He underwent a heart transplant this weekend. I'm sure he's not hearing me right now, but our thoughts are with Skip this weekend. Calvin Fish.
Well, information to these drivers is critical. Certainly they're in radio communication, but a lot of these teams have these little portable mobile timing screens. They actually bring it out to the driver who sits in pit lane, and you see the black stripe across the screen. That is Sebastien Bourdais, who's looking in on that to see where his progress is. He sees Bruno Junqueira, his teammate, at the top, and he's down in about 6th or 7th spot on his first visit here to Cleveland. But I think he's got another fast one in the bag there, but the timing of this is critical. You see Craig Hampson looking at the screen as well. They're just trying to figure out, when do we go?
A little over 16 minutes remaining. Bourdais currently 7th quickest in the session, 8th on the provisional grid. We'll be back where the sparks are flying in Cleveland. Welcome back. What a beautiful view of downtown Cleveland. It's undergone such an extraordinary renovation in recent years. And at the bottom of your picture, Burke Lakefront Airport, bathed in the light provided by Musco Lighting from Iowa. Here's a look at some of the numbers. 21 total trucks, 90,000 watts per truck, 200 million lumens. I'm sure that's a handy stat to keep around the house. The equivalent of 500,000 car headlights. It is the world's largest temporary outdoor lighting project by some way, equivalent to lighting 23 football fields, whether you're playing preseason or the Super Bowl.
That's a pretty staggering number, Joe.
Musco actually lit Ground Zero in New York and used 5 of these towers. We have over 20 of them here this weekend. On board with Jimmy Vasser, we have completed our mandatory 25 minutes of green flag time. We still have 13 minutes exactly to go in the session. And all those yellow arrowheads next to those driver names mean they are in the pits waiting to decide when they'll go out for their final run. 5 drivers are finished. Mario Dominguez, Roberto Moreno, Mario Haberfeld, Rodolfo Levine, and Tiago Montero. They have all run out their 15 allowable laps, or if they haven't, they'll be coming in on this lap.
This is always a difficult time to make that play. The time has run out, so but Cleveland's one of those tracks where you slide off, you'll get going again. You're not going to tear up a race car too much, but also you want to get out there and get a clear lap. You don't want to get caught up in traffic. All these guys complain about getting caught up in traffic. That's what happens when you wait till the last 10 minutes or so.
The risk for Jimmy being one of the first guys to go out before that rush, right about when his tires are hot, will be when the other guys are going to start trickling out. Now, something Paul Tracy has decided to sit out the rest of the session. That handicap of needing to do 2 quicker laps is not worth using the extra set of tires. The worst he can be is second, so he's going to sit back and watch. But an interesting thing happened last night. Paul Tracy's pole lap came after his spin on his first set of tires, and the grass and dirt is a very real problem here. The track got slower at the end of the session last night. When all these guys go out, in theory, you said, Scott, it should be better. The reality is here, oftentimes, with the dirt, it might not be.
With Bruno Junqueira currently P2, Tracy is on provisional pole position. 3 other drivers have not improved from yesterday. Those are Adrian Fernandez, Max Pappas, and Jeff Boss. Pappas and Boss currently make up the last row of the grid.
keep a good eye right here. Keep an eye on his hands there. You'll see how much he's fighting that wheel. When it comes up like that, car's picking up some push. You also see some of the bumps when it jerks around, just like that. That's how difficult and how rough this place is.
Calvin Fish.
Well, you see Bruno warming up right now. He just went out a couple of laps ago, so those tires should start to come in right now. But I spoke to the team today, and they said we're really starting to feel that we know what Bruno likes in a car. He's a little bit different in his style to Cristiano D'Amato. Remember, Rocky is engineering this car this year. Same guy who took Cristiano to the championship. So Bruno likes to attack the corners a little bit more than Cristiano does, and D'Amato's setup actually suits Bourdais more than it does Bruno, so they're now starting to feel him out. They get some test days behind them. Don't count these guys out for the championship. PT's strong, but Bruno is going to be there for sure.
Well, as we mentioned at the top of the program, the only driver in the top 5 of the championship who has not won a race yet. When he does, Bruno Junqueira could leap right into championship contention, leading the pack. On board with Michel Jourdain.
Michel, none of those drivers saw a lot from him last year in consistency, but this year he's getting downright aggressive. He's a tough player. He's got a good groove going. The team's working together. He's really stepped up. He's not in the shadow of any other driver, and he's performing. He's doing a terrific job.
Jourdain currently 9th. There you see our Ford telemetry across the bottom of your screen.
It just shows how once guys have tasted success, how they're different from that point forward. Jourdain used to be just over the moon with the top 5. Now, if anything less than a pole and a win, he's ticked off.
You see what happened there? He caught the curb on the left side. He actually heard it. Kind of a thump. That's a set of tires that they put on the inside, helping these guys find the apex. But when you hit him, you saw it just threw the car out. You can't be doing that.
You can see how much speed Bruno's carrying. Bruno is on a quick one now.
Check his intervals. Currently, he is slower than Paul Tracy's time to that point on his provisional pole lap. And speaking of Tracy, he's standing by with Derek Daly.
Paul's helmet with the tech guards and CEC, his personal sponsors that, of course, keep his road cars looking good. Paul, why stop so early?
Well, I caused that red. I spun, so car will take my fastest time, and I want to start on this set of tires, so I'll have to do 2 fast laps to keep 1, and I'll just over abuse the tires, and it's just not worth it. I'd rather have a brand new set of tires to start the race, and I don't feel the track is that great. I mean, there's a lot of dirt on the track, and there's a lot of guys dropping wheels, so I hope we might be able to hang on to it.
Good, thank you, Paul. Good move there, potentially.
And it looks like it too. I mean, we just saw Bruno Junqueira. He was, he ran a 58.7 that last time by. If he's going to get done, it's have to be this lap. But there is, when you get all this dirt kicked up on this track, he's locking the left front a little bit there. It just takes a little bit of that edge off the performance, off the grip, and you just can't quite generate that lap time.
Riding with Bruno Junqueira, Adrian Fernandez has now improved. He's still 13th on the provisional grid, but he has improved by 0.04 of a second over his first round time. Looking for the flag stand on the left. Bruno Junqueira crosses the timing stripe. 59.255. We'll be back. Welcome back to Cleveland, Ohio. Bob Varsha, Scott Pruitt, Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fish with you for final qualifying for this weekend's Champ Car Grand Prix of Cleveland. On board with Michel Jourdain. Oh, right side wheels off. And he never lifted.
What happened while we were at break, Thiago Montero went through there and drug his wheels across both apexes, put a bunch of dirt on the track, and so the rest of the track appears to be in pretty good shape, but they get to that final corner and they just really lose grip and fighting that camber of the road as well. But the car just picks up a push. Whatever the attitude is when it goes over the center line of that runway, if it's loose, it's going to go around like it did on Paul. If you got a slight bit of push, like Jourdain did, it'll just skate right off the track.
Whoa, look at that. Caught the curb on the inside and just jerked the car right around. That's one of the difficult things. You got to be right on the apex, but you step over and it just really throws the car around pretty much all the way around the track. As Tommy was saying, it just seems like we're out there running Trans Am cars. You just get this little powder and it slides across the track. Whoa.
That's a replay of Michel Jourdain putting those right side wheels off. And you can see the consistency of the dust. It's like talc or pumice. It's so fine.
just slippery, and you just get that slide going, and you just can't get the car back up underneath you.
Now I'll throw this in. This being a working airport, the crews were not allowed out there to set up the racetrack until the wee hours of Thursday morning. And one of the things they were doing as Sebastian Bourdais moves up to P3 with a 58.490, just 0.09 of a second.
Actually fooled the computer
P2.
there for a second.
Sorry.
It's P2.
P2, you're right. The crews were out. In addition to setting up the track, they were also, as Bruno Junqueira rolls to a stop down in turn 1, they were cutting the grass, so there were dry grass clippings out there, as well as the exposed portions of soil.
That was only 900 slower than Paul Tracy, so Bourdais trying to tie another lap together. Whether he's past the peak on the tires or not, it's a good question. There's a slower car up ahead.
Thought he was about to meet Mr. Concrete there for a second.
The back straight. Quick right-left combination.
Here comes the timing stripe.
P1.
Yes,
P1.
58.365. Wow. I'll have fries with that.
That's the happy meal.
Freedom fries, DK? Well, there's Paul Tracy. What are you going to do? Oh, there's his teammate, the King of Cleveland. As you can see, he's not the first guy to start tearing rubber off those Bridgestones down there.
Yeah, he's got to keep this thing going, because if he causes a red right now,
oh yeah.
Serbia moves up into third with a 58.5.
Okay, Pat, we've got 3 minutes remaining. 3 minutes.
How do you gather yourself up?
That's exactly where Paul spun earlier.
Looks like they're both fighting the same thing. When the car crosses that crown in the road, the back end really stepping out. And that could be, now that is the other side of that short oval underwing. Does generate more downforce, but with a small change in ride height, the downforce varies dramatically. When the rear downforce goes away, it slides the center of pressure forward and really pins the front.
Looks like Oriol Servia is headed for the pit lane.
Good run for the Visteon Lola.
Currently P3 behind Bourdais and Tracy.
I guess raising that car up over the bumps helped.
Back to Patrick Carpentier, who's really got to gather it up now. He's running out of laps.
It's thinning out quite a bit out there on the racetrack. A lot of guys have played their card.
That Carpentier and Bourdais, the only driver with laps left. Bruno Junqueira will be in after his next one. He is on track. Jourdain heads for the pit lane.
Bourdais goes quicker yet.
Wow, where's he finding this? 58.014.
Last lap, Pat, last lap. Good splits that lap.
Carpentier just completed lap 13. This will be his last hot one. Bourdais on track for his 4th pole in 9 races. The others came at St. Pete, Monterrey, Mexico, and Germany.
Turn 2, turn 3, into 4 complex as we speak.
The cars sparkle under this light.
Actually hear those tires grabbing too.
This is a medium Bridgestone compound, same construction they used at this track last year.
I think the screeching actually takes place when they go across the painted part.
Look at that track, up and down, up and down.
It's like the whoop section of a motocross circuit. This has got to be it for Patrick Carpentier.
That's a good lap. Good lap. Keep going.
Whoa, 58.449.
And pit this lap, please. Pit this lap. You are P3.
P3 it is for Patrick Carpentier, but there is Sebastian Bourdais. And now the crew can celebrate.
Big neck attack.
Man, this guy is quick. Remember 2 weeks ago in Portland when he was hanging his head after the car broke under him? He said, we just can't get a result in America. This is a big step up.
Some of the French aren't that fond of McDonald's. This might do wonders for McDonald's in France.
Checkers wave, session's over. It's official. Well, wait a minute. In light of recent events, perhaps we better wait till technical inspection is over.
You think it's set
Greg
of tires?
Hansen, the engineer, talks with his man.
I think it's both track, more laps. It took me a while to go. Yeah, I noticed. Well done. Well done. Both of the laps would have done. But it's going to get an answer.
Good point, Craig. 2 of the quickest laps of the day.
Make sure you come back to talk to me.
Well, Sebastien Bourdais, what a run. 4th pole of the year for this young Frenchman. And coming off 2 races, Seb, where you didn't get a finish, you're very disappointed with the points position right now, but this has to feel good. A great run out there tonight.
Yeah, 1st pole position on the track again that I didn't know before to come there. In the difficult conditions. I think, again, the McDonald Lilly crew did a great job, and we started with this car number 2 in good shape straight away. And I mean, just have to thank all the team because we had a fantastic car again.
What do you think of this racetrack? I mean, it allows you to really push and find the limit and go over it. Does that help when you're trying to learn a new track?
Yeah, for sure. It's easier to go up to speed because you know that, except in a few spots, if you spin, it's not a big problem, you know. So it's helpful for sure. But still, you need to be careful because it's going so quick that you can do a mistake which can have a big consequence. And also, if you bring a red, you lose the best time. So it's always a kind of compromise. But I'm really happy for this new announcement with McDonald. It's great.
Well, we have a special award for you tonight, Seb. I'm not sure you're aware of this, but Larry Bender here with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Sebastian, congratulations, a gift from Gibson and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
Can you play guitar, Seb?
No, I just have to learn.
That is a beautiful Gibson Les Paul guitar, a special pole award. Emblazoned with the logos of the Bridgestone Presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford and the Grand Prix of Cleveland.
Yeah, once you 2 hop up on the wall.
Whole lot of shaking going on here in Cleveland this weekend. 74th pole for Newman Haas Racing. 4th of the year for Sebastien Bourdais. We'll be back. Speed Channel coverage of qualifying for the Champ Car Grand Prix of Cleveland is being brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, advanced technology that gives you a grip on the future. And by Ford. If you haven't looked at Ford lately, look again. That's what Burt Lakefront Airport will look like Saturday night as the Champ Cars race under the lights, and you'll see it Sunday on CBS. Right now, let's get down to Derek Daly.
Patrick, a lot of people on this players team very happy with what you just did, but it looked pretty scary at times.
Oh man, coming out of turn 7, and I had to do it. I knew 58.7 was nowhere near to be at the front, and I wanted to do it. And the last turn, I just went for the throttle, and the car started sliding, and I was not sure if I was not going to hit the wall, and it went through, and that was good. I'm pretty happy.
How is the wrist, Patrick? Because we saw from your onboard camera, you appear to hold it at one stage.
Yeah, I spun the car and the wheel snapped and my hand got caught in it once again like it did at Long Beach. And I thought I broke it, but I just had time to pull it off. But it's pretty painful right now. I'm going to go see the doctors to make sure it's okay.
Good job tonight. Thank you.
Down here with Oriol Servier, will start alongside Patrick tomorrow night. And Oriol, a great run for you, 4th. 5 top 6 finishes in a row. Things are coming together for you, but you look disappointed. Your goals really moved a lot further now?
Well, I mean, you're always hoping for the pole, but I really think today we had the chance to go for it. We've been quick since the first session. We tried something this morning that didn't really work, so we went back a little bit the way we were yesterday, and the car really worked well. So, I was hoping, but obviously Bourdais went really quick, so we still are lacking some place. But the Visteon car deserved the pole, but I think it deserves even more a win, and that's what I'm going to try to give it to them tomorrow.
What sort of variables are we going to see with the night race tomorrow night? Is tire pressure critical? Is there anything that changes when you run at night like this?
Yes, I mean, tire pressure is always critical, daylight or at night, but I think it's going to be easier to make mistakes, and I don't want to make mistakes, I hope, you know. So it's just, focus is going to be a key factor. You get used to the lights like after 3-4 laps, so that's not going to be a problem, but there's still little things, especially here, that people go off track and brings a little bit of dirt inside. On daylight you can see it a lot easier than at night, you know, so that's going to be one of the factors to know.
Okay, well, it certainly should be spectacular. Oriol Servia matching his best qualifying performance ever. 4th spot for tomorrow night's race. Bob?
All right, thanks very much. It's a Stars and Stripes kind of weekend, and the fireworks are not far away here at Cleveland. Here's a look at our provisional grid. Sebastian Bourdais leads Paul Tracy. Tracy has hardly been off the front row all year long. Patrick Carpentier and Oriol Servia on row 2. Bruno Junqueira and Michel Jourdain on row 3. Alex Tagliani and Mario Dominguez on 4. Roberto Moreno, a former Cleveland winner and pole sitter, on row 5 next to Jimmy Vasser. And Vasser's teammate Ryan Hunter-Reay and Mario Haberfeld. Darren Manning and Adrian Fernandez on row 7. That'll be a disappointment for Fernandez coming in off that win in Portland. Rodolfo Levine and Tiago Montero on row 8. Walter Salas and Max Pappas on 9. And Jeff Boss alone on 10. Pappas and Boss, along with Tracy, the only drivers not to improve from their first round qualifying times. Derek Daly.
As you can see, Michel Jourdain is escorted here by his fan club, all wearing Michel Jourdain t-shirts. Michel, you probably don't know any of these people, do you?
I have no idea who they are. my mom, you know my mom?
No. Hey, Mom, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
And my cousins.
Cousins. How's you doing, everybody? That was quite a session. We looked to see, could you get on the pole, but not quite there.
No, not on the pole. I mean, Sebastian's lap was fantastic. I had a couple of laps going a little bit better, but I went off the track, coming out to the front straight a couple of times, made one mistake, and all that. But I mean, I think the third row here is pretty good. So many things happening in this race, so it's pretty good.
It is pretty good. Hey, boys, his mom looks like his sister. Calvin?
Down here with Adrian Fernandez, winner at Portland. Adrian, tough night tonight, not seeing the qualifying performance you would have expected.
No, for some reason my car is worse at night. The car feels better on the daylight, but at night it just doesn't feel as good. Obviously we have a long way to go. Last year we struggled big time here, and so we don't have a good base. I told the guys, enjoy Portland, because here we start from zero again. We need to find a good balance, and unfortunately we haven't been able to do it.
Well, the winner in Portland will start 14th for tomorrow night's race.
And that's the way it is in racing. The gauge goes back to 0 at each new race. Here's a look at the championship based on 2 rounds of qualifying. A point for Sebastian Bourdais helps his cause. He is now 46 points behind Paul Tracy. Don't forget, we're racing Saturday night under the lights here in Cleveland. You can catch all the action Sunday afternoon on your local CBS station, beginning at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Gentlemen, what you looking forward to, very briefly?
2 things. 1, turn 1, always a lot of excitement. 2, it's a very physical racetrack. I'm not sure, but these guys are going to have to work hard all day long.
That is blinding speed from Sebastian Bourdais. I mean, a full 4/10, almost 5/10 quicker than everybody tonight. Looks to have his run back on track.
For Scott Pruitt, Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fish, I'm Bob Varsha. So long from Cleveland.